Welcome to Unite Planet, and we're in the kitchen of Revelation,
We are.
as Andrew kind of like mentioned, and
Yeah.
it's that christened, hasn't
He's christened.
We're joined today by Micheal Feeley.
Hello.
Thank you for coming along, Micheal. We're going to discuss, I think today, the Egyptian codes, the pyramid codes, and Stonehenge. And you've got a new book out, haven't you, soon? Is that correct?
It should be out, touchwood, next week.
Yeah.
It's in the printers at the moment, so
Right,
that should
yes.
be out next week.
We'll put links onto, to help promote the book. So
Thank you.
We'll tell you.
Definitely.
So if you start off with this little background of yourself and how you got into this kind of research and that led you into discovering the codes and find the codes of the Egyptian pyramids and then Stonehenge. So hand it over to you.
A little bit about my background. I was a frontline police officer in the UK's two largest cities for 17 years. And I was dealing with emergency response calls and non-emergency response calls, investigating different levels of crime, from the very basic to sometimes being the first on scene at a murder. And you would have to sort of initially investigate it and coordinate everything. What that did for me was turn me into a trained investigator. It turned me into an expert witness in court. And it sort of made me able to spot evidence and piece evidence together, where lots of people may not be able to see some of the things that I've seen. So that was for 17 years. Probably from about 2008 onwards, I began to see lots and lots of UFOs and have lots and lots of paranormal activity around me and the wife, who was a police officer as well. And we'd see lots and lots of things in the sky, dimensional gateways opening up, UFOs in broad daylight, massive cigar shaped above our, three massive cigar shaped UFOs in our hometown. On one bright Saturday afternoon, we'd see, I've seen two dimensional gateways open. One of them was a wormhole in the sky. They just sort of streaked across the sky, and the craft emanated from outside of it. And then the craft shot across the sky slowly. The wormhole just fizzled out, and then the craft carried on and then just fizzled out as well. The second one, we were in dense forestry, just walking, and we could feel a lot of activity around us, and we felt we were being followed. There was a lot of things around us. So I just asked a friend who was with to take a picture of the area, and there was lots and lots of orbs, massive orbs that we think were following us. And we call this actually our Endocrine forest, because all of a sudden it was pitch black. You couldn't actually see 2 feet in front of you in the middle of the forest, and all of a sudden there was this beautiful pure white light that appeared in the trees, and it was completely silent, but it was that bright you couldn't actually look straight into it. You turned the eyes to look into it. And it spanned from the ground level about 30 feet up, and about 20 or 30 feet wide. And the wife's camera phone actually took a picture of it by itself. She got the phone in her hand and it just took it by itself. And when we actually looked back at the picture, we could see lots and lots of purples and pinks and whites, which we couldn't actually see with the naked eye. It was too hard to look into. And the orbs that we'd taken the pictures of following us, you could actually see going into the gateway. So there's some kind of dimensional gateway going on. One evening we were involved in a potential UFO landing. We were on night shift, and the first call of the night we went to an intruder alarm. But as we looked up at the sky, there was two almost like shooting stars, but we were actually travelling in tandem, literally about the same speed as shooting stars across the sky. And it just felt like a strange type of evening, like we weren't in control, and there was some kind of eerie energy going on. Well, that evening we'd had sort of 9 underground explosions, manhole covers shooting up in the sky, which the electricity board says was just out of the question, that they'd have one at best. On this evening there was 9 of them. And street lights were going out. We were getting calls that there were intruders and silhouettes in people's gardens. When we got there was nothing there. We were literally standing there, and the caller would call again and say, they're still there. They weren't. There was no one there. So they're obviously tuning into something that we couldn't see. And this was happening over a wide range of area. The same sort of area where all the lights had actually gone out, the street lights had gone out. There was a sort of an incident where, after we both left the police force in 2009, we actually relived the murder of a Victorian teenager who was murdered by her stepfather in 1850. And we've been actually asked to investigate that murder for her. We tried, but we had no date at that particular time, so we went back sort of probably post Second World War, but it wasn't really far enough. And on the 9th of February 2009, which was the 159th anniversary of this incident, we went to the mother's-in-law's house because we were being kicked out of our own house with things happening. We'd had windows smashing in the house, radiators were going off. That evening I'd felt something try to possess my body, but I could actually feel a partial possession, and then sort of managed to fight that one off. And it was so severe that we had to leave the house. Okay. About 3:30 in the morning, I can actually remember being taken back to what I would describe as an old sort of wooden bedroom, and I was lying in the bed, and directly in front of me, about 8 feet in front of me, I could see a window with blue curtains, and in the right hand corner there was a creaky wooden door, and that wooden door opened, and the wind off that moved the curtains, and at that point I heard the voice of a young girl say, "He's here," and I didn't recognise this girl at all. And from that point on, I just completely blacked out. But the wife looked across and said I was absolutely screaming as if I was being attacked. But as I came round and I looked across at her, she was the one who was screaming as if she was being attacked. So it was almost like a parallel incident. Yeah. But none of us can actually remember it happening in ourselves. Can I remember it happening in our partners? Yeah. We'd already sought the help of a medium. The same medium who told us that this girl wanted us to investigate her death, and she was going to come around the next morning. When we got to her house, she basically said that she'd been kicked out of her house as well. She'd been sort of dealing with mediumship and spirits for a long time, and this is the first time she'd been kicked out of her house. She'd had a washing machine lift up off the floor. It wasn't even switched on. She put a coffee cup in the kitchen. She'd gone to retrieve it, and it's been moved to the living room windowsill. And something to put a silver spoon in there. So she was saying she was made to feel really, really uncomfortable about coming to help us. Through the help of this medium, we found that this young girl had been suffocated by her stepfather, abused and suffocated. She wasn't going to leave this realm because her death was covered up and she had unfinished business. She wasn't going to leave. What we didn't realise until that particular time is that we'd also got the stepfather with us as well. So in the spirit world around us, we'd got the victim and the assailant, and he was the one who was smashing 6-foot windows in our house and doing all these kind of things to prevent us from looking into this girl's murder. Wow. Suffice to say, she was taken wherever she needed to go. Before she left, she said, "Thank you and I'm sorry." And my favourite colours are pink and lilac, which seemed a strange thing to say. But that became quite clear a couple of days later when we got home, and there was actually a pink and lilac flower sitting in the house for us, which wasn't ours. It wasn't there before we left. So we think she'd come back and give us some kind of sign. Wow. He was a nasty piece of work, and the medium had quite difficulty get rid of him, and it actually made her physically ill for a long time after that. So she really had a fight to send him on to wherever that was. That really what I call my awakening, and it was a harsh awakening. Even though we'd seen UFOs and different paranormal things, to actually relive a murder from Victorian times was a harsh awakening. And I couldn't actually sleep with the lights off for 6 months after that. Right. It wasn't the fear that it was going to happen again, it was the fear that it might happen again. It was the fear that what if it was to happen again, because it really, really sort of shook us at, completely shook us at our roots. From that point on, it became a bit more pleasant. We continued to see UFOs, we continued to see what people would deem as angelic beings, which I think are electromagnetic forces. And they would enter our living room, and literally it's almost like a controlled explosion. And then we'd see different coloured orbs just floating in the air and morphing into different shapes. And they would sort of leave. But from that point on, in 2009 as well, I was kept getting shown a golden key in my mind's eye, and I didn't understand what that particularly meant. But I subsequently found out, having researched that it was actually the Gnostic key of knowledge and wisdom, and they believed that knowledge was a privilege rather than a right, and it was only worthiness that enabled people to come into sort of sacred and secret knowledge. And they had a principle that only the eyes that can see and the ears that can hear will come into this kind of sacred esoteric knowledge. Okay. So I also continue to see the number 22 even to this day, and the number 22 again is Gnostic, secret Gnostic information. So for some reason it's come to me for a reason. As I was writing about, so in 2010, the wife and I was discussing maybe wanted to go on holiday, and was both getting a real strong urge to go to Egypt, and we didn't. We knew it was going to be more than just a holiday. It was going to be a working holiday. About a week before we actually went, it was all booked up, and before we went, we had a strange email from a psychic medium from Scotland who we didn't know. And she
Just a random,
just a random. She'd introduced herself previously, but it was. She basically said that she got a message for her from a spiritual council, and she said that her spiritual council was a hierarchy of archangels and different sort of entities.
Right.
And the email just read, regarding your trip to Egypt, you need to look past the tourism. You need to understand her, learn her about her, and then teach about her. And it meant nothing. It confirmed that we were going to be there for more than just a holiday. But that message didn't mean anything at all. 7 years later, when I was visited by a pharaoh from Egypt, one evening I was just walking down a set of stairs and I heard this strange whoosh sound. And as I looked round to my left, there was an Egyptian pharaoh walking alongside me. But at the same time that I could see him from the left, I could see him straight on frontal, and could also see him as if he was looking through my eyes. So it was also a multi-dimensional sort of view of this pharaoh. It probably lasted less than a minute, and he didn't actually say anything. Just before that, I was also visited by a scarab beetle that just manifested out of the wall in my house, and also literally seconds before that, I looked down at my feet and there was a serpent of pure light scuttling away from my feet across the floor. So there's all these Egyptian things going on when I was sort of looking into the pyramids, and a lot of it, as I get into a moment, when you look at harmonics, and especially harmonics within the King's Chamber of the pyramid, it was at 8 hertz. 8 hertz is the frequency that syncs both hemispheres of the brain.
Right.
And it gives the brain the full potential, and it also sort of tunes you in with universal knowledge. And I think a lot of this information that has come to me that way, because I've been tuning into it. A lot of it I will be sitting there, and I can actually give you the exact moment when information is actually prodded into my head, and it's literally, you can actually feel it being put in, and it comes as an idea, which then grows into a theory, which then grows into a research fact, as far as I can see. So I can tell you why the pyramids were built. I can tell you what they replicate. I can have a good guess at how they were built. There's 2 lines of thought on who built them. You've obviously got the ancient alien theory, but you've also got the aspect of the syncing of the hemispheres of the brain as well, which was tuning them into this universal knowledge. Because the Egyptians, as did a lot of the ancient cultures, they had an advanced knowledge of DNA, they have an advanced knowledge of harmonics, they have advanced knowledge of the universe, and they were able to extract information from their own genetics. So they were quite an advanced race. Where they got this information from, it's either going to be an alien or it's going to be tuned into the universal knowledge. The pyramids themselves, I found what I call an ancient code, and that ancient code for me is a blueprint that spans across the ancient world, and it spans from Egypt, it goes all the way through Stonehenge, it goes through to the Anunnaki Sumerian scrolls, it goes all the way through to the true esoteric Bible, it goes all the way through to Norse Odin legend, even to Santa Claus and King Arthur. It goes all the way through all these legends, because they're all telling you the same message, and that's why it's a code, and that message is enlightened consciousness. And if you look at the pyramid shape is actually the model of consciousness. So because we have, inside our brain, we have what's called pyramidal neurons, and the pyramidal neurons deal with advanced cognitive functions, and that is all to do with enlightenment and consciousness and knowledge in the brain. When you look at water, just at the point of freezing, water will link together and spin in the shape of a tetrahedron, which is a pyramid, and at that stage it will become conscious, it will develop its own consciousness. When you look at the platonic solids, and you look at the fire element, which is a tetrahedron pyramid shape, it's all to do with consciousness. Even quartz crystal is a tetrahedron. So it is basically the model of consciousness, and that's why the pyramids are pyramid shapes, and that's why they're all over the world. They're even on Sidonian City on Mars. And not many people realise that there's a mathematician called Carl Monk who has actually deciphered a sort of pyramid matrix. And what he's proven is that the longitude and latitude of the pyramids of Egypt tell you where Stonehenge is. Stonehenge tells you where the pyramids are. The face on Mars tells you how to find Stonehenge, and the pyramids tells you how to find the Sidonian City on Mars. So there's all this mathematical correlation. So there's either a Martian civilization that knew about the civilizations on Earth, or it's the same civilization that is travelling back and forth. Because they are in a cosmic sat nav, they're telling you how to find, in the digits of the mathematics, they're telling you how to find each of these monuments. So if you were able to understand the longitude and latitude on the face of Mars, and you understand the mathematical digits and the coordinates, you can find exactly where Stonehenge is, and vice versa, and the pyramids.
Right.
So there's all this information that is hidden within the mathematics. There's also mathematics within these monuments as well, and a lot of people think that the mathematics within the monuments, like Fibonacci, like the golden ratio, like pi, are there because they are there for mathematical sake. They're not. They're there because they have conscious rays and frequencies. So pi vibrates at 528 hertz, which is the frequency of love, but it also it basically brings everything to full potential as well. It's known as the miracle tone. You've got Fibonacci, which vibrates at 432 hertz,
Right.
which is known as the God frequency, and that balances the third dimension. So we have all the, and the golden ratio also vibrates at 432 hertz. You have the Star of David that's 432 hertz. At the Borobudur temple in Indonesia, where you got 432 statues of Buddha, that is because it's 432 hertz. So you have all of this mathematical coordinates across this ancient world that raises consciousness frequencies. That's why they're there. I say inside the King's Chamber you have the 8 hertz, which resonates with the brain. The alpha wave of the brain also resonates with the frequency of Earth, and it raises you to full potential. So within the King's Chamber as well, there's lots and lots of references to the number 5, which is the pentagram.
Right.
And the pentagram is number 5 is the number of realised man. So again, we're talking about enlightened consciousness. Within the pentagram, within the inner dimensions of the pentagram, that is 108 degrees. 118 hertz is the frequency of total knowing. So again, we're going back to the same enlightened consciousness, which is that code. When you look at the word pharaoh, it means great mind. So again, we're going straight back to Golgotha, the place of skulls, where the Bible gives us a story of a physical man, a physical Jesus. The esoteric story of that physical Jesus is the genetics of the body, how it goes through the process of Kundalini awakening. And Kundalini, which is what I saw scurrying away from my feet, is a white liquid fire. And it's white because that is the colour of balance. And a liquid fire is more of a chemical composition. And the word chemical or chemistry comes from Chem, which is Egypt. So again, we're going back to alchemy and all this kind of science. So this Kundalini awakening, which is the serpent fire, goes up Jacob's ladder, and it activates what is known as the Christ seed. And the story of the internal Christ, we have a heavenly Christ, which is post-resurrection, which is the sun and the signs of the zodiac, and we then get to astronomy. But the earthly Jesus, the physical Jesus, is basically male sperm. And sperm means seed, and saviour means he who sows the seed. And what happens at the age of puberty in males, aged around about 12, which is when the Bible says Jesus began his father's work, we have this Christ seed, the Christos seed, which means to oil, to anoint. He's the anointed one. So this Christ seed is born or is connected to the solar plexus. The solar plexus is known as Bethlehem. So we have this sperm, this Christ seed, the anointed one that is anointed by semen, oiled by semen, that is born in Bethlehem. Inside the solar plexus you have a thimble-sized depression known as the manger. So the Christ seed is born in a manger in Bethlehem. And we have either side of the manger, we have the Ida and Pingala nerves, which are Mary and Joseph. The Ida nerve is the lunar nerve. Mary means water, and the moon obviously has connections to water. So we have Jesus is then baptised in the River Jordan, which means to descend, to flow downwards. That is the spinal fluid that contains salt. Salt is our salvation. So we have this Kundalini awakening then goes through the lower chakras, which are Sodom and Gomorrah, and destroys them by fire. So Sodom and Gomorrah are destroyed by fire. And this Kundalini awakening goes up the spine, which is Jacob's ladder, and he takes the Christ seed and he goes through to Golgotha, the place of skulls. And the Greeks have called the optic chasism, which is round about there in the brain, the cross. So the Christ seed is crucified on the cross, the optic chasism. And to crucify means to subdue one's appetite, which is celibacy. Because celibacy and the retention of sexual sublimation, which is the retention of sexual energy, celibacy, helps this Christ seed to rise. So it gets crucified on the cross, and then it goes in the tomb, the cerebellum, for 3 days. It takes the subconsciousness 3 days to cleanse itself in order to ascend to God. That's why Jesus was in the tomb. Christ seed was in the tomb for 3 days. It then comes out of the tomb, witnessed by Mary Magdalene, who will discuss that in a moment. But it then goes through to the pineal gland, to the third eye system, the endocrine system, where it is resurrected. And resurrection basically means to use again. So the body is refining and using the sexual energy again. And it goes through to basically God consciousness, which is then post-resurrection. So all of this Christ is actually the inner workings of genetics. Mary Magdalene, who was the first to witness the resurrection, is the amygdala within the brain. The amygdala is situated by the cerebellum, which is the tomb. And the amygdala in the brain deals with many things, but also deals with libido, which is sexual appetite. So that's why Mary Magdalene is a prostitute in some circles, because it's the amygdala within the brain. So we have all of these things that are happening in the body, which is actually the Christ, Jesus. So Jesus was never a singular man. Jesus is every one of us, because it relates to the atomic structure of the human body. And when we go back to the pyramids and we look, I've actually drawn a map overlay of the human head facing north over the Great Pyramid. And it faces north because the pineal gland is known as the North Gate. And inside the brain we have what's called an endocrine system, which is the 3 master glands of the third eye system, which just happens to vibrate at 144 hertz. And then we have the 144,000 casing stones and 144 means light. So again, it's connected to vibration and consciousness. And if you look where the pineal gland is situated, which is one of the master glands, it is where the king's chamber is situated. When you look at where the pituitary gland is situated, it is where the queen's chamber is. And when you look at the thalamus, that is relating to the sun, and that's in sort of in between the two. So we have the 3 main gods of Osiris, Isis, and Horus, which are the 3 master glands of the human endocrine system. Endocrine means secretion within, and it secretes a brown and white secretion, which is the land of milk and honey. So we have all of this endocrine, and that's where we also get the word secret. So it is a big secret that this is happening inside us. This is our Christ consciousness, our awakening. So the Egyptians knew this, and then their Great Pyramid is a giant replica of this endocrine system of the human brain. So it is marking the spot of where all these master glands are. They also had a 4th member, they had a quadrant system of consciousness, and the 4th member is the cerebellum, which deals with equilibrium, deals with balance, because only through the balance of opposites will you reach this consciousness level. So they understood, and when you look at King Tutankhamun's cobra headdress, that is the cerebellum, and you can see the brain stem and the cerebellum, and that deals with equilibrium, which is the balance. And that's exactly what Tutankhamun's death mask and other Egyptian headdresses are representing, which is the cerebellum. So that is the quadrant system of their consciousness. When we look at the pyramid shafts, and we see that from the Queen's chamber, which is the pituitary gland, which is known as the star chamber of Isis, it faces up to Sirius A, which is associated with the goddess Isis. When we look at the chamber of Osiris, which points up towards Orion, Orion is associated with Osiris. That's why that's up there. When we look at the other side, it faces what is now known as Draco, but in Egyptian days it would have been known as the cobra or the serpent. And the cobra and the serpent, yes, it represents wisdom and knowledge, but it also represents the balance of opposites. And the cobra also represents escaping the physical realm, as a snake does when it sheds its skin. So we are escaping the physical realm, and they were basically doing this to get to the other worlds. So the whole of the pyramid is a replica of what's happening inside our consciousness. And their enhanced frequencies is getting them to that sort of enlightened state. So that really is what the pyramids were there for. And Nikola Tesla once said, if you only knew the significance of 3, 6 and 9, you would have a key to the universe.
Yes, I've heard,
You will notice that the Giza Plateau has 9 pyramids in sets of 3, 6 and 9. They're basically giving the harmonic key to the universe. and that is the model of consciousness that the Egyptian pyramids. When we move over to Stonehenge and we look at the concentric circle, which was known as a primary halo, what they were doing with the Presley bluestones of Stonehenge. Presley bluestones have 7 bands of energy, and those 7 bands of energy connect to the 7 chakras of the human body and balance them and tune them. So what they were doing was harnessing Earth's Kundalini energy, which was coming up through their vessel, balanced vessel, and raising their Christ consciousness. So again, it was a consciousness sort of effort from Stonehenge. So again, it's the same ancient code. When we move over to the likes of the Sumerian Anunnaki scrolls, I agree in principle, as we said before the interview, that the human genetics have been tinkered with in some way, because for about 35,000 years ago, there was a massive advancement, which is too fast for Darwinism, too fast for evolution. So when I look at the Anunnaki scrolls and I see the gods of the Anunnaki and Anu, Enki, Enlil, planet Nibiru, to me I see a genetic code. I agree with Zachariah Sitchin in principle that we've been tinkered with. I've seen extraterrestrial beings, I know they're here, I've seen their craft, I've seen them. But when I look at the likes of Enlil, who's got wings and hold on to a pine cone, the cerebellum has 2 lateral wings, 2 hemispheres. It's known as the little brain, which is the Mini Cooper symbol as well, with a black circle in the middle. That is the cerebellum, and the black circle is the atom, which is the Egyptian equivalent of the bindi, which marks the pineal gland. And cerebellum is little brain, which is the mini. So that is that symbology. But when we look at it, we got the cerebellum, which is the 2 wings that you see the likes of Enki and Enlil having. They are serpent gods. The 2 lateral wings of the cerebellum are separated by what's known as the vermis, which means serpent. So you have the 2 wings separated by the serpent. They are holding on to pine cones. Pine cone is where we get the word pineal. Pineal gland, pine cone. So he's talking about consciousness again. When we look at the likes of planet Nibiru, planet X, the Egyptians, the Egyptian word for the planet Venus, which is the pentagram, which is the realised man, is Neb-Heru, which means the house of Horus. So Neb-Heru and Nibiru. Nibiru means wandering planet. The orbit of Venus noticeably wanders. It is known as the wandering planet. So you have Nibiru, the wandering planet, and Neb-Heru, the wandering planet, which is planet Venus. Planet Venus has consciousness raising frequencies, hence why they mapped it over Stonehenge, and hence all of these astronomical significances. So that planet X to me is the planet Venus, Neb-Heru. And when the Anunnaki say that they brought the moon with them when they came to Earth, for me scientifically that couldn't be possible, because they also said when they got here they found life. It's a scientific fact that the Earth and the moon have the same isotopes, which are chemical elements. They are also the same age. So whenever the Earth was created, the moon was created in the same area of sky. So they couldn't have brought it with it. The moon keeps Earth at 23.5 degree tilt. It's a planetary stabiliser, and it's that tilt that gives us the 4 seasons, gives us a liquid instead of a solid water, and it also makes this planet at an inhabitable warmth. That's because of the moon. So without the sun, we wouldn't be here. Without the moon, we wouldn't be here. The 2 great luminaries of the sky. So the Anunnaki could not have brought the moon with them on the basis of that science. The word Anu means the ultimate physical atom of creation. So again, we're looking at Adam and Eve, the atom, and ionic bonding, extracting electrons from the atom, which becomes Eve. So we're talking about genetics through there as well. And it's the same with Santa Claus, which is the holy colostrum in the North Pole, in the head. The holy colostrum in the brain creates consciousness. And it basically, the story of Santa Claus, it goes through the nigra substantia, the black substance, the coal, which deals with reward. And as the Santa Claus coming through the body, again, it's the same sort of principle, that it's all about consciousness. Odin, in Norse myth, he gave up an eye in exchange for knowledge. So he got one eye, that's the pineal gland, which is the single eye. So again, it's talking about consciousness and consciousness rising. King Arthur, when King Arthur was with Excalibur at the stone, and how he could actually remove the sword. The sword is symbolic of impenetrable knowledge. And Excalibur means Excalibur Libertarius, which means liberated from the stone. The stone is the foundation stone, which is the pineal gland. So only the chosen, in this case King Arthur, could extract the knowledge from the pineal gland. It is the forbidden fruit, it is the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden is the human body. The forbidden fruit, to forbid, means to deny access to a place. So therefore, the establishment that are hiding all this information are denying us access to our rightful inheritance, which is this knowledge. So the whole of the ancients had connection with each other. The whole of this ancient culture had connections with a civilization on Mars. That is provable by mathematics. It's also provable that they had connection because of the message that all of these monuments seemingly separately are given the same clue. They're given the same answer. They're given the same, enlightened consciousness. So they must have had connections, or they must have had access to the same knowledge. So that's really where it's taken me. It's taken me into the advanced sort of mathematics of the universe and these monuments. And it's also taken me to information as to why these monuments are actually here and what they represent. So that really, in a nutshell, is from 2009 to the present day, to 2018. So in a relatively short time, this mediumistic sort of message that happened in 2010 is now becoming really, really true. And it took 7 years for that information to be realised.
Is the people on Earth today, that like the ones who run this planet, behind the closed door, we don't know, will they know? Will they know the full knowledge of this? Would they know all the, have they got this knowledge fully, or is it just some of them got bits of here, some got bits of there? Are all the people who are they all? Would you say they all got this knowledge and they're purposely keeping us from this by? I don't know, are they keeping us on a frequency that we can't access it purposely? Because we see it all the time. Like the psychological operations are happening to us all the time. It can be very
definitely.
subtle,
Yeah.
and it can be sometimes it
Obvious.
Can be obvious, yeah. And it's everywhere you look. When you start to become a bit more aware of it, you see it all the time, don't you?
Definitely. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I am
All the
definitely.
time.
Yeah.
But most.
No. They're too busy with extracting.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big question. How do we break through that?
Yes, so the establishment that have created these religions to keep us away from the truth, the establishment that are calling themselves Illuminati, the enlightened ones.
Yes.
A lot of this comes from the ancient mystery schools of Egypt.
Right, yeah.
And we have the likes of the serpent priests of Osiris, which were known as the Jedi, who later became the Druids. And Druid means out knowledge. Then we have the Conservative Party logo.
Yeah.
So
this is where it all ties in.
It is
connection.
Within the House of Commons, you have the Hoshen, which is, if you look at the green seats, you'll see like a portcullis. And that is the breastplate of the serpent priests of Osiris, who are the Druids, the Jedi. There's all these things. When you look at American culture, even the White House, the Oval Office, the hot dog, the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, it all relates to Egypt. When you look at the House of Commons, it relates to Egypt. When you look at the River Thames, it relates to Egypt. When you look at all of these things, it relates to Egypt. All American presidents, bar one, were related to the pharaohs of Egypt. They're related to to European royalty and British royalty. The red carpet of the Oscars is the royal bloodline. The Oscar statue is the Knights Templar, who are the modern day Illuminati. So it is all connected, and they know this. And it just so happens that Freemasonry, the highest level of Freemason that we know of, is 33 degrees. 33 degrees, 33 hertz is the frequency of Christ consciousness. There are 33 vertebrae of the human spine. When you get to that, you get to the 33 degrees of Masonry. It just so happens that 33 hertz is also the frequency that syncs sacred geometry, and then you have the big G within the Masonic temples.
Right. Okay.
It's all connected, and Jesus died aged 33. So all of these things are esoteric, hidden. So most people never ever. All they ever do is just follow the diversion signs.
Yes.
If you imagine that all of these religions, all of these belief systems, come from a bark of truth, which is Gnostic knowledge. All of the branches are a fraudulent system of distraction. And that is where you get all of these religious cults and all these other things. So there is a hierarchy that know all
Yeah.
this.
And of course, it's purposely laid down, so we are distracted. We do go down.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, you know.
Definitely.
And the distraction, there's so much as well. Isn't it?
Oh, this nowadays especially, it's even
Yeah.
worse. It's they doubled it in my opinion. You know,
but like I say, the connections with everything, even like the Oscar, you know, it's if you know, I suppose you know what you're looking for, you must see it all the time, you know. So in my mind, you know, you think that this ain't coincidence, you know. You very quickly think this is not coincidence,
no,
and then you can look really, can't you?
yeah, exactly.
It's-
Yeah,
And of course, the Druids, the Jedi, they used to make magic wands from the wood of the holly tree, which became the magic of Hollywood. So even that is all connected as well. And to get to the Oscars, you go through Ishtar Gate. Ishtar is Isis, who is the Egyptian goddess of motherhood. Mason comes from mother's son, Sirius A, Mars son. So it is all intrinsically linked. But people see at least 1,000 of these symbols each day, but don't recognise even one of them because they're too distracted or they don't understand what they mean. When I see a church, stained glass windows, architecture, when I see company and brand logos, it speaks a different language to me. I can decipher. It's almost like
I've seen the Lichfield Cathedral. You marked it through that video, yeah.
Well,
I've been there and I think, yeah, I remember seeing that.
the Lichfield Cathedral. Again, if you put the map overlay over the city of Lichfield, the certain parts of inside Lichfield Cathedral that marry up with the endocrine system of the brain as well. So that is how that's connected to the pyramids of Egypt. So all of these churches, and the church is basically the moon because it reflects the light of the sun, the light of the Christ. So in astronomical church, the church is the moon. So it is all, there's this advanced knowledge, this underlying theme of all these ancient cultures, and all of them are telling us the exact same message, which is our potential to raise ourselves beyond the third dimension. So what we need to do first of all is understand that there is a system, there is an agenda against us through the changes of the frequency of music, through all of this clusters of positive ions in chemtrails, to what's been happening in the water, what's happening in the food, because each of the food also has a resonant frequency, and certain resonant frequencies are compatible with universal harmony and with the body, and the food-like substances that we're eating now have no beneficial frequencies whatsoever. They're actually keeping our frequencies down, because they're keeping us at this low vibrational ebb. By doing that, we're basically down and out. We are controlled, we are divided, we are conquered. And if people start to realise there's an agenda against them and start raising, there's no point trying to take them on and try to fight them because they're ready for that. You know, the last place you want to see a boxer is in a boxing ring. You do not want to fight them on their territory. What you want to do is raise yourself so you're too high for them to actually get hold of you, because they're not compatible with that kind of vibration, and that's why they do everything they can to keep us down here.